Welcome to a Nebula Music Podcast topic review, a mini-series where I talk to some of my previous guests and ask them questions submitted by fans and really get more detailed into specific topics that fans want to know or learn more about. And I have Todd Pritchard joining me on these next couple of topic reviews. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in. All right, guys, what is up again? I am very excited because I have Todd Pritchard joining me on this topic review. Todd, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I'm excited because we get to a chance to talk about some questions that were submitted to me and just that people suggested, that some of your fans and stuff that I'm sure they're wondering about how you do your processes and just how you handle your career, because you're a very talented, very influential musician and just person. And just to give you guys a little bit of insight, Todd, Mr. Pritchard, just moved to Los Angeles, my home city, which I'm excited for. We've gotten a chance to hang out a couple of times, and you're just a very lovely individual. And I mean that I'm giving you some compliments because you really are truly a cool person to hang around with. So
thanks, man. Sorry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So one of the questions actually that I received from some people through other guests and just for you as well, but it's something that a lot of people are curious about, especially when they don't live in a big city or, you know, a place known for entertainment.
Yes.
Primarily, I'm talking about like Los Angeles, Nashville, New York, maybe a couple other cities. A lot of people are wondering, when is the best time for them to make a move to like a big city for musical opportunities? And I wanted to ask you because you just made that move literally like a couple weeks ago. And I just wanted to kind of get inside your thought process. So Todd, how do we know, or how did you know that it was the right time to move to Los Angeles for opportunities?
I knew for me personally that it was time to move because I was stagnating. The environment I was around was not helping me grow. So that had to do with the gigs I was getting, or the lack of opportunity, and also just the people in general. Nothing against the community I was in. I wanted to move in a different direction career-wise, and I knew that Los Angeles, after doing a bunch of research and meeting people who have moved out here or were here for quite some time in the business, was a land of opportunity in terms of that. And I knew I had a network out here as well, so that was a really important thing. But again, the big thing for me was I got too comfortable with my environment, and I wasn't growing. So Philadelphia for me was my growth into my musicianship, and then I felt like LA was like the right career move. You know, more of like on the business side and opportunity wise. So Philadelphia was more gaining my skills as a musician. You know,
was there a specific like moment, or and I guess. For me, I completely understand what you're saying when it comes to the growth. Was there like a moment, maybe you were playing a gig, maybe you were sitting there kind of sort of planning out your week or your month. Was there like a moment where you just felt that, like, you know what, I've kind of hit my plateau here? Was it very obvious, or was it like a very gradual understanding that your time in Philly was coming to a close?
It's very interesting that you asked that, because looking back on it, I knew exactly when that was. But did I make the move on it then? No.
Really?
I stayed for a bit because it's a big, I've been living there for a very long time. My life was there. I was seeing someone. I was in a relationship. My whole music community that took me years to build was there. My family was on the East Coast too. But I knew that when I look back on it, and the experience for me for not going at the time when I really felt it was great, because it was a lesson in learning how to trust my gut. And I didn't trust my gut then. And, a lot of people go through this, but for me, like I said, I'm glad I went through that waiting period, because it was more to me than just a move. I learned about myself through the process.
Absolutely. And so do you feel like, and I think maybe I'm just kind of repeating what you're saying. So with you staying in Philly and knowing when the right moment was, but you still decided to change, that sort of patience allowed you to, settle into your gut. Like you said, like you now understand that when you feel something, you're basically ready to move and ready to go. Do you feel like when it comes to when other people are trying to, make decisions, do you feel like that gut feeling is very much present in everyone's decision? Or do you feel like you sort of have to grow into it as an individual? Does that sort of make sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah, I'm a bit older and it took me a little while to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. So over the last couple of years, I was like, I knew I wanted to do music. I like to play guitar, but I also wanted to branch out into other things. So I kind of at that point knew myself and I knew what I wanted for the next 3 to 5, I would say. And I knew that I couldn't get it in Philadelphia. So a lot of it has to do with knowing myself, but at the same time, play devil's advocate, I think your environment is crucial. So I've worked here for a few years, just gone back and forth traveling, and every time I come to LA, I meet somebody that inspires me to do more,
Yeah.
And that was through the random happenings. But when I decided to it's interesting, when I decided to take a jump and do this, all these things started falling into place. And it was really beautiful because it was like I finally decided to trust my gut and just go all in. And for me, the universe has a way of testing me. There was a bunch of stuff that happened. A lot of things happened before I moved, but I stuck with it and I got through it. And, after a couple weeks here, I love it. Finally getting settled in. And like I said, it's different for everybody, but I feel like it's good to know what you want before you decide to aim in a certain direction. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And you know what? It's interesting because I feel like your story is very similar to almost any successful person that has a similar, I jumped, I had faith in what I was doing story has a very similar result. But I guess what I'm curious about too, and I'm just, this whole idea to moving to LA has always been fascinating to me because I grew up here, so this has been my home for forever. But for you, do you feel like had you jumped earlier, whatever that may have been, years earlier, months earlier, whatever, without necessarily fully understanding what you wanted and understanding what your gut was telling you, do you feel like you would have had a harder time here in LA? Do you feel like maybe opportunities would not have come, to you as easily? Or do you feel like it would have been maybe the same? I'm just curious what you think about that.
I feel like I would have been better off if I moved earlier. I feel like I would have met certain people that, because the songwriting and producer sort of studio thing, which I'm really getting into and loving, has always been like a big scene here. I feel like I would have met a lot of people who would have influenced me more to write my own stuff and do certain sessions, and I would have been able to build my network earlier. But it's a learning experience, it's what I chose to do. So, like I said, from that experience, I learned a lot from it. So.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing I want to point out. If I can add anything to this small little review, or at least advice from Todd Pritchard, it's that you got to make the best with what you chose to do and what you've got, really. We could all sit here and dwell on what we've done and what we haven't done. But the reality is, if you're willing to learn from everything, you'll always be moving forward, at least in my opinion. And you eventually came around and you decided to move to the best city in the world. And now you're here and you're reaping your rewards for taking that gut feeling. And you know what? We'll never know. I'll never know what would have happened to my life years ago if I would have made different choices. And I don't think you won't either. But we can at least sit here and both, reminisce on the choices we did make and appreciate that, learn from it, and continue moving forward.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And, it's easy to compare and say, well, this person did that at that time and blah, 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 but we're all moving and evolving on different levels, So for some, it might be a relationship sort of thing that's highly evolved, but their career is struggling, or somebody might be going through, I don't know, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, there's so many different aspects in life. I feel like we focus so much on the career side of things, but I can't tell you how much music in general has just kind of expanded me as a person in terms of getting to know myself, because right from the get-go, it was kind of that just guessing game. What do I do? How do I make a living doing this? Like, and the one thing that I would recommend to anyone who's trying to or thinking about making a move is make sure you really love this, because if you don't, you're going, you got to put all yourself into it.
Yeah.
Like at this point in my life, like it doesn't stop. I love it. I can't get enough of it. But it's like, you just really got to love it, because, the money might not always be there, or the opportunities might not always be there. But if you have that passion, and you stay consistent, and you have good willpower, and you have good discipline, and if you're at the right place, things can definitely happen for you. Absolutely. But this business is really wild. It's a free for all. I mean, I'm still learning every day, but it's definitely very unpredictable. So
absolutely, man. Wise words from you. It's so true. Just to sort of recap what you've said, when you feel like, and again, I completely agree with what you're saying. If you ever feel like you've sort of outgrown where you're at and you feel like you need to start moving or to, shake things up, chances are it is time. Listen to your body and listen to your gut, and definitely ensure that you love and are passionate about this industry, because exactly what Todd said, it's very unpredictable. I've lived it. You've definitely lived it, Todd, and we understand that we survive in it because we love it. And you have to love it too, just as much, if not harder, in order to, basically make a living off of it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, man.
This has been a Nebula Music Podcast topic review. I hope you learned something new. Definitely press that subscribe button, because I'm going to have way more topic reviews and way more interviews coming your way.